You can quickly set up your service account binding, and provide the correct permissions on your tenant and namespace, all here in the UI. You're going to need the service account and service account binding to deploy your pfSQL queries, which will deploy as functions. I'm going to go to service accounts, go to new. I'm actually just going to call it source syncs service account and click confirm. It's going to create the service account. It may take just a few seconds for it to show up on this page. And then I'm going to, on the far right, go to edit service account bindings, and I'm going to turn on the binding that corresponds to my cluster. So one of these is my cluster. Once I do that, I'll go ahead and click confirm. You should see the service account binding show up. Next, I'm going to add the required permissions on my tenant and namespace. So if I go over to tenants and namespaces, I'll go to router tenant, router namespace, and under policy, going to add role, I'm going to add the sources syncs service account. Now, the first permission I need is functions permissions. That's because the pfSQL queries are going to deploy as functions into this tenant and namespace. This is the tenant and namespace that I'm going to be using to deploy them in. Again, router tenant, router namespace. I'm exclusively only going to be using topics inside of router tenant, router namespace. So I'm going to say consume and produce just for this namespace. Now, if you're going to be deploying pfSQL to other namespaces using this service account, you'll have to add the functions permissions there. And then if you're going to be reading from or writing to other topics and other namespaces, you'll need to add the corresponding consume and produce permissions there as well.